Susan Rice has served in the Obama administration since 2009, first as ambassador to the United Nations. But since 2013, Susan Rice has been the national security advisor. She is responsible for giving the president his daily national security briefing. Rice also coordinates the administration's foreign policy, intelligence, and military efforts. Rice spoke with Charlie yesterday about some of the biggest dangers that this country faces. He joins us once again from the White House briefing room. Charlie, good morning to you.
Good morning again, Gail, Nora, and Anthony. I talked to Susan Rice for more than an hour yesterday, and she said to me our most consequential relationship is with China, and that if, in fact, President-elect Trump, when he becomes president, breaks the one China policy, it would break also decades of diplomatic norms. Donald Trump is talking about taking a new look at the one China policy. You think that's a wise thing to do?
I don't. The one China policy has served the United States, Taiwan, and China well. And it has been a foundational element of the U.S. China relationship since normalization back in 1979. We are a friend and partner of Taiwan. We adhere to the Taiwan Relations Act. We provide defense equipment and support to Taiwan, and that has served Taiwan and the United States well. But to abrogate the one China policy or to bring it into an ancillary negotiation, say on an economic or trade issue, I think would be a grave mistake. And I think that we will find that China, with whom we have managed to forge a far more pragmatic and effective relationship where we cooperate in a far wider range of areas than ever before, whether it's climate change or peacekeeping or global health or non-proliferation. And we manage our differences and our competition, whether in the economic sphere or on the South China Sea, in a constructive fashion to avoid conflict. That whole balance could be upset in a very devastating way.
Not only that, North Korea.
Well, in fact, China, for better or for worse, is an indispensable player when it comes to North Korea. Our global economy is such that the U.S. and China's economies are intimately linked. They hold a high proportion of our debt. There are just many ways in which we can't afford to play fast and loose with what is the most consequential bilateral relationship on the planet.
But here's what some people are looking at, and they ask themselves, they see Xi Jinping at Davos giving a major speech, first time he's been there, basically saying, look, globalization is good, when the whole populist revolution is about globalism is bad. It's almost like China is saying, we are the champion of globalization, not the United States.
Well, the United States has been the biggest beneficiary of globalization and free trade and open markets. It has reinforced democratic rule in many places. It's raised living standards, and the exports are a huge basis of our economy. So I think we would be very remiss if we ceded the mantle of leadership on free trade and economic openness to China.
Susan Rice also told me that although China had been very aggressive, especially in the South China Seas, that she thinks that U.S. policy has managed that potential crisis.
Charlie, did you talk to her about Bashar al-Assad in Syria?
I did. The interesting thing she has said is that she was never in favor of the United States intervening in the civil war between Bashar al-Assad and the rebels who were fighting against him, that their goal in Syria had to be defeating ISIL, and suggested that within the year 2017, she thinks that the United States not only will retake Mosul, but also retake Raqqa, but they had no alternative.
Charlie, we understand that you ran into General James Mattis this morning, Mr. Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. What did he have to tell you?
Well, it was amazing. Anthony, this is a very quiet morning here, although we're facing a huge change in power. And I get out of the car, and a friend of mine said to me, that's General Mattis. So I walked over and said, General Mattis, and he turned and said, hey, Charlie. It was a picture of one person, seemingly alone with no security, soon to be, after confirmation, one of the most powerful people in America, surrounded by aides and security people. Here on this morning, 2 days before the inauguration, he's singular and solitarily walking to work. And this is the guy, that they call Mad Dog because he was such a good Marine officer. But here he was by himself. And I thought, this is a nice vignette of democracy, and America in transition.
Yeah, it's all changing in 2 days. So did you invite him to CBS this morning? or
Yes,
the
I
Charlie
did. I
Rose
knew
show?
you would ask me that, Gail, so I did.
Yes, I try not to be predictable. Thank you, Charlie. It's always good to see you.
Gail King, our booker in chief.
That's great. I love stories like that.
I
It
know.
can only happen in Washington.
Only can happen in
gonna be
Washington.
fun.
And, you know,
Very
of course, at like 6:50 in the morning.
Right.
And it's
Everyone's
It's all-
Charlie and Mad Dog.
It's all going to be different for him very soon.